We're catching pedos today, but with our minds. The worst kind of pedo is the kinds that live in our memories. Because if you hate pedos as much as I do, it's probably because they're all trapped there, and we need to free the memory. Even if the pedo's dead, you can still catch him. Pedo energy never dies, and hunting is a lifestyle. There's something very weird about trauma that's similar for every victim. You can't remember. Bodies and faces just become blurs. Primarily, you have to first get rid of surface level thoughts. Very surface level thought is, I had a good childhood. Remove that, and then acknowledge the more minor traumas. Coping mechanisms usually used to cover up the deeper ones. Probably remember one event and think, oh, it only happened the one time. But that's only because they told you, oh, it only happened the one time. Take into account the real personality of the people you were around. You'll notice it probably didn't happen the one time because those type of people really wouldn't let it happen only one time. Take into account your current situation, your chronic pains, your illnesses, your psychiatric disorders, and despite how often the medical professionals will tell you, oh, it's your drug problem, oh, it's in your head, or kind of push medications that will numb or subdue thinking ability, acknowledge that your current issues are real and have a stem from something traumatic from the past, recent, or childhood. You know your current issues are very real, regardless of diagnosis, and from that determine that your memories or the dreams you've been having, which are your memories, most likely indicate very real traumatic events. So say you have like an idea or like a vague feeling that something in particular happened to you by someone that you may have been gaslit or feel genuine love enough to trust this person and assume, oh no, this person would never do that. And that's usually trapping thinking because realistically and really, all humans are kind of capable of being absolute monsters. Definitely at least once in their life, and yes, definitely to you personally. So if you kind of have an idea like, oh, this might have happened, but you don't remember the specific event, you can maybe remember the events surrounding what you think may have happened. So, for example, myself, when I was gaslit into oblivion and had no idea I was a victim at all, because when you are like a massive victim of something, it is likely you are going to be absolutely brain dead at very many points in your life because of how damaging it is for your brain, damaging. And so, like, for me, I remembered specifically something with a step-grandfather, and I had only really remembered the events following and prior, sort of. So, like, being a child, lying naked in my bed, and him coming in as a power move to hold my hand. So, right, like, if you didn't want to, like, assume that of someone you love, then you'd be like, oh, you know, he's just playing around. But realistically, you know, and then I looked at the events around that where, oh, suddenly my grandfather just left. He just disappeared. Like, everyone kind of just pretended he didn't exist for a while, and I asked about him, and then they just said, oh, he's gone, whatever, he's not coming back. And, you know, me at that age, and also just kind of being obedient, trained to be obedient, kind of just left it at that, you know, forgot about him too. Suddenly, a couple years later or so, he comes back, and he has a brand new car, and we're moving to Vegas for some reason. And so, kind of making the connections with all the events surrounding that event, and then also taking note of dreams and flashbacks that I would have, and also actually trying to remember the person in question, unlocked the doors for extra traumatic events to be revealed. And then also kind of referring to other people who you probably would be able to trust, and sometimes they're not going to be the people you expect. Like, you don't really go up to the people in question. Like, for example, my grandmother, my mother, if I asked them about any of these events, they would just straight up say, oh no, that didn't happen, or I wouldn't do that, or, you know, basically covering their own ass because they did in fact do it. So you would want to probably ask, like, friends that are affiliated with the same situation you were in. Ask them if they remember what happened to them and anything that you may have said at the time. And then keep in mind, everybody is gaslit to oblivion, so they may not remember, but there are other people in your life that might be more honest and say, well, there was that one time you were acting really weird, so I don't know. So keep those kind of conversations in mind. And then eventually, when you kind of do enough digging within yourself and enough self-work, you know, acknowledging the emotions and traumas as real, acknowledging your situation, your chronic illnesses as real, and with stems from these events, you can actually start to vividly, like, see the event happen when you remember it, and maybe only for like a moment, maybe only for a second. And a lot of times I will kind of close my eyes and try to visualize something, and I'll just kind of ask my brain, like, okay, I know this is a situation that happened, and I know it happened many times, so give me one instance where I actually saw this person's face, you know, so I could see the situation in question and have an idea of what happened. And so, like, I will kind of close my eyes, kind of open my third eye, which really, it's, metaphorically, it's a real thing. Like, telling your brain to activate his visualizing processes is a real thing. And if third eye is a good visualization tool for you to remember that, yes, it comes from right here, and you visualize it with all your senses plus your thinking abilities. So yes, opening your third eye and then visualizing, asking yourself, okay, I know this happened with this person. Please give me an image or a memory as best as I can remember, because for me specifically, I had kind of lived it with a family of hypnotists, so a lot of times I was like comatose when it happened. But having a dissociative disorder, a lot of times we can actually just bloop out of ourselves and actually watch it happen, third person view. And yeah, that is real, and you'll notice it, and you might think, wait, this is weird, this is like I'm watching, like I'm someone else watching this happen. And yes, that is exactly what it's like. But then sometimes you can actually remember it from the perspective of the child that you were getting the reception of this trauma. And a lot of times, and you can probably agree with me, you'll see specifically someone just hovering over on top of you in, like, you know, a missionary sense or even a doggy style sense. You can see this person on top of you, and you can visualize what their face was. You could see who it is, and it might come to a shock to know that these specific people did that to you, but you are definitely catching a pedo. And something that has been bothering me a lot lately with I don't know if it's the nationwide or worldwide culture we're in, but phrasing such as, why would I want more trauma? Isn't the stuff I remember enough? And not even considering, like, people who talk that way as lying about their trauma or saying they have less trauma than everyone else, but realistically, like, the prevention of your own thoughts and actually remembering what you went through kind of does deteriorate the brain. And whether you care enough about how good your brain works or not, you know, I know no one really wants to feel the physical discomfort that comes with remembering trauma, for sure. But when you are a victim and you don't exactly want to feel like all of what you've been through has been, you know, all forfeit, worthless, basically leaving you an empty husk with dementia, basically, because with enough gaslighting and not enough healing of that, you pretty much develop dementia, and that is pretty much a correlation. So I suggest just remembering those traumas, getting used to the discomfort, because it already happened to you. You might as well acknowledge that it happened to you, and you might as well catch those pedos that did it to you. And it's not really about being obsessed with your own trauma either. You should not focus on a single event and obsess over it, because realistically, if there's one event that you are aware of, there's probably hundreds of thousands of events similar and more bizarre. And the goal isn't really to have a victim mentality, because you are a victim, but it is a much broader issue than the self and how much of a victim I am. We are victims. This is a huge issue, and it's not exactly about us as a singular unit. Reminding my particular family was connected with almost every other family. And so it's not just my issue, knowing that I probably have an entire population of people that were with me experiencing that exact same trauma. Also, despite what professionals might say, and if you can handle it, sometimes a little substance can actually unlock a little bit of memory for you because of triggers. If you're a victim, you probably done got drugged. So yeah, I am Lucifer, Bug, the devil. You do not have to wait until they're dead to start making accusations. We hate them. That is all. Sweet dreams.